Alright, what's up guys? In today's video, we're taking a look at the CR-56 Amax. I think this is probably the most underrated gun right now in Warzone. It's definitely an excellent weapon as far as the damage, and with the most recent nerf to the Bruin, I think the CR-56 Amax can fulfill that role of what the Bruin used to be, is a high damage, high accurate gun. We're talking about today's video is obviously how to build the best class setup, take an in-depth look at those attachments and why I recommend them, and then we're going to take a look at the time to kill and basically compare it to the best class setup of the M4, the Kilo, and the Ram, and why I think it has its own unique area in Warzone where it can be excellent, which to me is for the aggressive players. This is an excellent weapon as far as that high damage, and the time to kill within that first 2 damage range drops is a lot faster than the M4 and the Kilo, so I definitely think it's an excellent weapon you are not using. So like I said, the first thing to look at is actually that time to kill to see why this is actually a good weapon. So if you guys do enjoy the video, please leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Alright, so what we are looking at right now is the time to kill of the CR-56 Amax versus the M4 and the Kilo, which I think are the 2 best ARs right now in Warzone. As you guys can see here, in your first base range of that Amax, obviously this is which each gun with its best class setup, you guys can get all up to 35 meters. It has a significantly faster time to kill. And you can see if you go look all the way up, the orange is the Amax. It has a faster time to kill at every single range than that of the M4 and the Kilo. I think it has a pretty good recoil pattern as well. It definitely stacks up a little bit better than the M4. So I definitely think that accuracy is still pretty good for it. So as far as, you know, where you're taking a look at where it is best, in my opinion, due to the fact of its stats, it's going to be better in that close range. If you take within that first 50 meters, the time to kill in that first 50 meters is still faster, even with the range drop off, than that of the M4 and the Kilo in its second damage drop. So that's to me what makes it excellent. The biggest factor you guys can see is that damage per mag, which to me is one of the biggest factors of what to me makes the gun really good. It has a lot better damage per mag than that of obviously the M4, the Kilo, and the Ram, even though it has the least amount of ammo due to the fact that the damage is so high. So within your first 35 meters, you're going to do more damage per 45 bullets than you are with 60 of the M4 and the Kilo, which to me is excellent. And even if you take that second damage drop up to about 50 meters, you guys can see your damage is still significantly better. And that to me is what's the biggest factor about this gun, is the damage is incredible. The fire rate is a lot faster than the SCAR and the AK, and the accuracy, in my opinion, is better than both those guns. So this is a top tier assault rifle. I definitely think it's probably better than the M4 and the Ram 7 at rushing. You guys see you have the Ram 7 here, which you guys see the time to kill. This is the versus the M4 and the Kilo. The Ram 7 to me is an excellent weapon, only better in the close range. So when you actually take away the M4 and the Kilo and just compare it to the Ram 7, you guys can see it's a little bit more competitive in that close range up to obviously within that first 50 meters. It's significantly better than the Ram 7, which I said in my previous video about the Ram 7 was this is the best rushing weapon. I think the Amax is definitely better. The biggest factor, obviously, when you take a look at the overall class setups, you take a look at their stats, the biggest factor for me is the Amax has the slowest aim down sight time, has a pretty good movement speed. Your stray speed is the lowest, so your ability to react in that close range is on the lower end of all these rifles. So your aim down sight, your stray speed is on the low end, and your bullet velocity on the low end. And to me, one of the biggest factors is actually that reload time. It has the slowest reload of all these guns for the least amount of ammo. So it's definitely a big factor. It definitely kind of helps counter that damage out of having the lowest stats, but also having the highest damage. So I definitely think it's an excellent close range weapon. So we're going to take a look at now. So what we're going to take a look at right now is how to actually build the best class. This is kind of similar to the Ram, and it's very, very, very simple. You have obviously a short barrel, a mid short barrel, and then you have a long barrel. Obviously in Warzone, you want the longest long barrel possible to obviously give you the best range and the best recoil. Obviously stack with the mono suppressed, you want to stay silenced and obviously get increased range. And the biggest negative to me is the ammo. It only has 45 rounds, which to me is somewhat balances it, I guess, because you see the damage per mag is a lot better than that of the obviously M4 Kilo and the Ram 7. The biggest factor is comparing the Commando versus the Ranger. So the biggest trade-off for these two, obviously the Commando has slower movement speed and a slower stray speed, which we're trying to build a close range weapon. does have better stabilization. When I actually tested the recoil patterns, you guys will see on the screen over here right now, I think the Ranger had a better initial recoil pattern, which to me is a little bit better. I think it had better recoil. Obviously has a faster strafe speed and a faster movement speed in exchange to get a slightly slower aim down sight time, you guys will see on the screen. The Commando is 331 milliseconds, which is a little bit on the slow end. And obviously with the Ranger, it's 357. So 357 is pretty slow for an assault rifle class setup. Definitely in a close range weapon here. So they kind of trade off. For me, I'm definitely going to be taking that Ranger just because I think the initial recoil pattern is better. It also gives you a faster strafe speed, which helps a little bit better in your close range fights, and a little bit faster movement speed, which to me is the biggest factor. Obviously, like I said, the Amax is one of the best weapons for the Tac Laser. I 100% recommend putting the Tac Laser on there. It's definitely, obviously, like I said, I pretty submitted a video talking about how good the Tac Laser is. The aim walking steadiness, the aiming stability, and the aim down sight improvement is excellent for a close range only weapon like this gun is. Obviously, even putting the Tac Laser stack with the Ranger, your aiming stability is still excellent, so you can still hit your shots at long range. So this to me is going to be the best class setup for everything. So even for rushing, I still prefer this over the Commando because that strafe speed, and even stacking the Ranger with the Zodiac, which helps your recoil control. Obviously, the Tac Laser, you get the best stability, the best recoil control. In my opinion, to give it the best overall gun. I personally really like the Commando, but I'm not going to be using it. Obviously, you guys know if you're trying to build this for that long range, doing heavy damage, kind of like what the Bruin used to be, you're using the VLK sight. The one thing I would recommend is not using a grip, kind of like the current Bruin setup. I use the Bruin with no underbarrel. You put the long barrel to obviously increase your bullet velocity and recoil, and you have to put the Tac Laser on there because you're stacking with the VLK sight, which to me is a little bit better than the Commando. You don't lose movement speed, you don't lose strafe speed, but you get just as good increase to your recoil. And obviously it still allows you to stack the Tac Laser to help improve that aim down sight time. I definitely think the VLK, if you're stacking it for the best class setup, is going to be better than using the Commando with the Tac Laser, just because it's going to help increase your range to see. You get that 3x zoom. In exchange, you get no loss in movement speed and no loss in strafe speed, which is going to help your overall mobility, which is kind of a little bit on the low end for this gun. So those are the two class setups I recommend. Obviously, with the Ranger, it's going to be the best close range, best mid range, best long range. If you're a slower player like myself, I play really slow, I mount a lot, I play a lot of high buildings. You want the best recoil at medium to long range. That VLK sight with the Tac Laser is going to be basically the mini Bruin setup to give you guys the best stats in my opinion. So those are the best class setups. So let's talk about the unique attachments. We're going to break down them individually, kind of compare the Commando and the Ranger head to head a little bit more in depth so you guys can see what's best about it. Obviously, take a look at the VLK sight and the Tac Laser. And obviously, with this being a close range, we're going to take a little more look into the no stock, the skeleton stock, and the stipple grip to see are those actually worth using. So let's jump right into it. All right, so obviously you guys saw the video on how to build that class. In order to get to those best class setups, we have to compare those attachments and actually take an in-depth look at them and see how good they really are. Obviously, the first attachment to look at is obviously the foregrips, that Commando, and that Ranger. The biggest difference between these grips is obviously the Ranger is going to have a slower aim down sight time. With the Commando, it's obviously going to have a slower movement. So as far as the movement, the Ranger is 1% slower. The Commando is 2% slower. The biggest factor is with that strafe speed, the Commando is actually 14% slower, where the Ranger is only 10% slower. So it has a significantly worse mobility as far as your aim down sight loss of that Ranger foregrip. In the best class setup, it's only 26 milliseconds slower, which is not that bad. So as far as which one is actually worse, that strafe speed being lowered and that movement speed being lowered, in my opinion, affects this gun more in the close range, because with those two stats, you're going to move around faster and strafe faster, which is going to obviously help you win more close range gunfights. So I personally think the Ranger is better. When you actually take a look at the recoil pattern, the first few shots of the Ranger I feel like are a little bit better. In my opinion, the first initial kick of the Ranger versus the Commando is a little bit better. The Commando was definitely probably a little bit overrated on this gun. Probably 99% of the recoil patterns with the Commando is really good. I definitely did not find it very good on this gun. So, like I said, that's why I recommend the Ranger. The biggest difference is that aim down sight time is not that bad. It's really not, because this gun already is pretty low in that category. So I personally prefer the Ranger. As far as the next attachment we're going to take a look at is, like I said, that Tac Laser. This gun does have a lower aim down sight time. I previously uploaded a video on how good the Tac Laser actually is. if you guys want to go watch that, it's going to teach you everything you want to know. But the Tac Laser to me is probably the number one attachment for the Amax. It's obviously a close range weapon, so improving your stability, your mobility, your aim down sight time, and your aim walking steadiness is going to help improve your player tracking at close range, and obviously improve your accuracy and your mobility at close range, which is going to help you win a lot more close range gunfights. So I personally think the Tac Laser, once again, like I say every time, is the best attachment. You guys will be able to see the biggest improvement on the idle sway of the CR-56 Amax. The base attachment is not that bad. It's actually a little bit on the slower end as far as how slow it moves around. With the Tac Laser, I found it gives an excellent improvement. With this gun being such a high damage weapon, your ability to hit your first shot and do as much damage as possible is very important. So the idle sway improvement it gets to me is excellent. Like I said, being lower in the aim down sight out of all the ARs, that an aim down sight improvement is excellent. And you guys will see a little clip of the aim walking steadiness improvement, which obviously helps your player tracking. I think is excellent. So the Tac Laser to me is 100% going to be on all my class setups. And as far as the other attachment I usually trade it out for is going to be that VLK Sight. This gun to me reminds me a lot of the Bruin on how you don't use a foregrip because it is lacking in the mobility category. So by adding a grip on there, you're going to lower down your movement speed and your stray speed. So by avoiding adding a grip, what you can do is add the VLK Sight, which actually improves your recoil about the same, if not a little bit better than that of the Commando. With that VLK Sight, you have no loss in movement speed, no loss in stray speed, and your aim down sight time is actually the same loss as you get with the Ranger, but in exchange you get a lot better recoil pattern. So I definitely think the VLK Sight's an excellent attachment to use on this gun. It's definitely going to be in pretty much all my class subs with this gun because I think it improves the recoil, which to my opinion, this is where the gun kind of lacks. So if I'm doing the best class, I'm always doing the VLK Sight with the Tac Laser because the VLK does have a loss in ADS. But it definitely, in my opinion, when comparing head-to-head versus the Commando, it does give a better recoil pattern. So that's why I personally think you can run it without a grip because you get no loss mobility. So the last thing I want to talk about is the no stock attachment. It actually got a silent buff on a lot of these guns. Previously, it had like 1.5% faster movement. After one of the most recent patches, like 1 or 2 weeks ago, they actually buffed the movement speed up to 4.5%, which is 3 times faster movement speed. So it's definitely excellent. This is one of the few guns where it is a close range weapon. Like I said, it lacks in the mobility category. So by adding that no stock attachment, is going to help increase your stray speed, your hip fire. Obviously, your movement speed goes up with that Merc foregrip being completely lost out now. As far as that movement speed loss, it does basically the same thing as the Merc foregrip as far as your hip fire and your movement speed, but it also increases your stray speed by 20%, which you guys see a little video clip on the screen. This is the exact same class setup on each gun. One gun has the Tac Laser, one gun has the no stock. You guys can see the stray speed is significantly faster, which, like I said, it's a close range weapon. So getting the fastest stray speed possible is going to help you a lot more in those close range fights to be able to outgun your opponent. As far as the biggest difference, which is obviously going to be in the recoil, I did not find it that bad. This gun does not have that bad of a recoil. It's actually extremely predictable, in my opinion. It's a little bit random at times, but you guys can see the recoil pattern on the screen. Obviously, base class setup with Tac Laser versus base class setup with no stock. It's mainly purely vertical, besides a little bit of variance to the left, but it's purely vertical, in my opinion, which is the easiest to control. So I 100% recommend no stock on this gun. Obviously, it changes your iron sights a little bit, better hip fire. Obviously, the biggest negative, it completely negates your idle sway, makes that terrible. But with this gun being a close range weapon you're going to be using within that 50 meters, I definitely think no stock. This is probably one of the only guns besides maybe the Kilo that I'm going to be recommending it on. It definitely counters every loss you get in mobility on this gun and completely brings it back and actually makes the mobility probably one of the best in the game while making the recoil not as bad. So I definitely 100% recommend it. So if this video does help you guys make a better class setup for the CR-56, please leave a like. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. And leave a comment down below what gun you guys want me to cover next. If you guys haven't yet, follow me over on Twitch. Follow my Twitch at Trapgod. I'll be live streaming all day, every day next week. So make sure you guys come over, follow, subscribe if you guys want to. Make sure you guys use my discount code on all of your Scuff and GFUEL purchases. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video.